Well, Danny Elfman, it is a pleasure to get to talk to you. Coming from somebody who was around back in the radio days where I used to actually get the vinyl, the 7 inch singles of Oingo Boingo and the albums, and actually play the vinyl on the radio. Here we are all these years later talking about a record from Danny Elfman again, Big Mess, and absolutely stunning stuff.
And how interesting is it in that in the quarter century since I kind of went to sleep and woke up again, because I do feel a bit like a vampire, like I went into like my cave and then I emerged what seemed like for me like a week later, but 30 years had gone by. But that vinyl is back.
Rumpelstiltskin. That's what we should call you.
Yeah. I remember when I was told, I think I had two or three, my first records were vinyl. And I remember the acetate, the test that you get, they can only play 3 or 4 times. And then suddenly being told that we'll be doing no more vinyl, it's all CDs. And it's like, so it was kind of like, well, okay, I guess so. But what I really missed the most was the artwork and the lyrics and the artwork and that whole thing. It's like suddenly it's like this little thing. It's like, well, that's not as fun as like holding a great 12-inch piece of artwork. And
Absolutely.
so I love it, the fact that vinyl is back, and I've been putting all this energy into the vinyl, the packaging and preparation that I haven't done. I just stopped doing really after the very beginning, because it's like, oh, it's just for a little CD. It's like, come on, why bother putting that much effort into it? And now it's like, it's a piece of art, like turn it into a piece of art again. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, you can stick to that story about it's taken you 37 years to make another album because you were just waiting for vinyl to come back. That one works for me.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't going
Yeah.
to do another damn record until vinyl was back. And I finally sniffed the air and I smelled the vinyl. And I said,
Yeah.
time for me to come out.
The actual title, Big Mess, really describes 2020. Now, you had the song Happy, though, didn't you? I'm assuming that one preceded the whole COVID thing. So, were you actually
No,
building up to a record before COVID?
no, I mean, well, yes and no. I wasn't building up to a record, but I did start out with the song Sorry. And Sorry, I actually wrote intending to be an extended instrumental, experimental piece for orchestra and rock band and singers, and I wrote it for to be performed in Tasmania, actually, at a festival called Dark Mofo.
Oh yeah, yeah. Brian Ritchie's festival.
Yeah, I really love Dark Mofo, and I said, oh, I'd love to do that. And but I ended up not being able to do it because I wasn't able to put together a whole show for it. I had this piece of music, which be 10, 12 minutes long, and I needed to come up with another 45, and I just couldn't do it in 2019 and 18. That would have been the year before Coachella was supposed to happen. And then when Coachella popped up, it's like, oh, okay, I've got this interesting offer, and I'm going to do half old and half new, half film, half not film, kind of mix it all up. And I had this new song, Sorry. And I said, oh, I can't wait to like open the show with my own fans with this crazy piece of music, because I get the pleasure of seeing a bunch of people go like that. Like, what the fuck is this? And I go, how often are you going to get the pleasure of like seeing your own audience go, what the fuck are you doing? And so I was really excited about that. And then before Coachella was supposed to happen, I came up with Happy, became this counterpoint to Sorry. And uh, and then the whole thing imploded. So, we were already deep into rehearsals, and it was all exciting and putting together this whole thing. And so I kind of went back to what I would be doing, and I started on an orchestral commission for the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain, but also with the knowledge that the proms in London that was going to debut in was never going to happen. And it was just very depressing, so it's like I'm in the middle still of what I'm thinking is going to be another era of American Trumpism, which is like living in a George Orwellian world that I never could have anticipated. And now we have a pandemic, and now Coachella, that all 3 months of energy has gone into, is just canceled. I was not in a good mood, but I did not intend to make a record. I actually started to write orchestral music, and then I thought, you know what? I'm feeling so frustrated. I'll just do a couple of songs, just to kind of go with it. Because already when I put lyrics to Sorry before Coachella, I realized I had so much venom in me that was just like needing to get out. And even Happy was, done to be a very subversive, a pop song that was like, not a pop song at all. But, the idea of like, I thought it'd be very subversive and funny to start with a song that sounds like the poppiest pop song ever, like bubblegum bowl pop, and end up with something that's just really like, oh, it's so fucked up. And so I had these two pieces, and I just started writing myself in my little writing room. I wasn't even at my studio because I hold up north of Los Angeles with my family. And I don't have a studio here. I just have like a writing room, just like a little room with a writing desk. And I had only one guitar and one microphone. And I didn't even have a pair of headphones that worked. My headphones didn't work. And it's like, fuck it. I'm just going to go. And I started a couple of songs. And I think after the first 2 or 3 songs, I realized that I'd opened a Pandora's box that now there was no closing it. And really, if it wasn't until the fact that by the end of summer now, because this was April into May 2020, right? And by late summer, I said, I'm going to have to stop. I called Laura, my manager, and said, I don't have a deadline here. I'm going to keep going. And she says, how many songs have you written so far? I said, I'm already up to 16, and I don't think I'm even quite finished yet. And she goes, oh yeah, we've got to start, playing this around. And because it's just like, it just wasn't going to stop. It was just like, it really was kind of like an explosion of stuff. And I finally had to force myself. And when I got to song 18, I said, that's it,
That's like a double album. Like back in the day of vinyl, there were very few double albums. I mean, Beatles, White Album, Physical Graffiti, Hendrix had one. There weren't that many double albums. So to actually do a double album is really a throwback to that time.
Yeah, totally. And it was kind of interesting because already by the 6th song, I saw they're coming out in pairs. It already started with Sorry and Happy. And then the songs that started coming out were all playing off each other. And I realized, of course, this is why I was so frustrated being in a band, is because I'm always at war. And every time I sit down to write, I've got 2 writers that don't like each other, and they're trying to get into space. One of them is very serious and heavy, and the other one is the exact opposite, is just like super adrenalized energy and sarcastic. And I found that, okay, it'll be 2 sides to an album. There'll be an A and a B side, and they're going to be very different because both of these are, they're coming out in 2s. And then at a certain point, I realized, no, it's going to be disc 1 and disc 2. and that was also the freedom of not being in a band anymore, just being able to like really let myself go. And, I think when I used to be in a band, I really wanted to be in a different band every other year. Like every 2 years, I wanted to start all over again. But you can't do that.
Yeah. I guess when you're doing a movie, you've got a limitation. Because the movie's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you've got to work towards that. That lid was obviously taken right off when you went into Big Mess.
Totally, because and when I'm doing orchestral commissions, which I've done like at my 5th or 6th right now, same thing. There's still a deadline. There's still a performance date. You have to deliver the music to the orchestra by this period so they could learn it by this date. It's still the same thing. It's not a movie, but there's still very definite dates. And I hadn't not had a deadline in a long time. And I realized that without a deadline, I'll just go forever, until like, I'd still be working on Pee-wee's Big Adventure if I didn't have the deadline.
This
And
album, it's dramatic, it's dynamic, it's almost threatening when you put it on. I mean, it leaps at you when it comes at you. This isn't an album that Oingo Boingo's Danny Elfman could have made, is it? This is an album that has taken that 37 years of working with soundtracks to understand the dynamics and layers of levels of music, don't you think?
I don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, technically, that I know it's 37 years since my solo, but I only did one solo record. But it's still been more than a quarter century since my last Oingo Boingo record. That was 95, right? 27 years. Still a long time. But I know that I didn't feel any sense of obligation, which was really liberating for me. And when you're in a band, there's a certain point where you're feeling obligated to provide what you know that your fans want to hear and what the band is good at doing. And you've got these kind of things that you're thinking about. And this time when I sat down to write, it was just all exploding out. And there were a couple of songs that I was aware. Well, first off, one song is a reworked Oingo Boingo song, Insects. And that I did for Coachella because, I was reworking some Oingo Boingo songs, especially some of the stuff that was more topical because, I realized as I looked back through my own stuff for Coachella that I'd always imagined a dystopian America, in my mind's eye, but I never thought it would happen. And now I felt like it's happening. We actually are a quarter century, 35 years later, entering what I feared 35 years ago, this kind of dark space. And so I was pulling out songs that were a little more political for the most part, or had a certain kind of a society dystopian quality. And one of them was Insects. I go, well, Insects is nothing. And I said, oh yeah, sure. Well, who's Insects for me now? And I just thought of the US Senate. And I said, those are the motherfucking insects. And those are the ones that I feel like are sucking my blood. It's these old white men that basically are driving the country into fascism. So even that became like a political song for me. But overall, with the exception of a couple of those songs, it was way more personal than I ever did back in Oingo Boingo time. I didn't write a lot personally. I wrote more third person, like taking a character and being sarcastic. And so the closest thing on Big Mess would be the song Kick Me, is probably the closest into that mentality of like picking up a character, celebrity, and singing a song from the point of view of a overindulged, pampered celebrity. But the rest, it was just like really weird because it's like, I don't know what anybody's going to make of this shit, but this is what I'm feeling and this is what's coming out. I really couldn't control it. And when I wrote the song True, I was like, man, I don't even know where this shit is coming from. And it's like, but that's what it is what it is. And I'm not going to like try to control it.
You visualised True through the work of Sarah Sitkin. Tell me about her and how she got involved with this.
Sarah was just like such a blessing for me because originally when we were doing Coachella, I was developing all this visual stuff for the screens because that was actually the thing that really got me excited about coming out and performing at Coachella. It was when I finally went out there after many years and seeing these big, beautiful screens. I said, there's just so much possibility with that. And we hired a young guy named Aaron Johnson who ended up doing the video for Happy, which actually started from visuals he was doing for Coachella. And he brought in Sarah to do this 3D scanning because he wanted to do this kind of 3D scanned face that was like my face, but uncanny valley, kind of fucked up. And that's where I first met Sarah. And then I realized when I started going further that it's like, oh my God, Sarah's an amazing artist. So when it came time to put together artwork for the album, I went back and I looked at her stuff, and myself and my creative director, we said, we should really be going to Sarah. And when Sarah and I hooked up on that, it was like, oh my God, it was just an explosion of images. I never had more fun. And fortunately, again, it's back to vinyl. It's like, rather than just a CD, it's like we're getting a triptych that opens up. I get like 4 big images. I'm really going to have fun with this. And it's all Sarah. And we just did these sessions together and we just clicked instantly. She's got a dark sensibility that I just loved. And it felt like it perfectly matched how I was feeling about it. And it was just one of those things, lucky things. And so it's like I'm putting out a whole book of our work in putting together the deluxe package now. And it's just filled. It's like my music and Sarah's images, to me, are really what makes the big mess.
The other left turn on the record, I guess, is with the Zach Hill remix of Kick Me.
We have a number of remixes. I mean, that's one of the surprising and exciting things about this is I feel like I'm just an old film composer, doing a weird retro album. No one's going to want in. And my bass player, Stu Brooks, was like, are you interested in remixes? I go, yeah, I'm always interested in like seeing where people go. I said, but nobody's going to want to work with me. And then he started coming back with these, well, I reached out to this and this and this and this. And it's like, they're all saying yes. I go, you're kidding. And so there's actually a big, exciting group of people doing remixes and reimaginings that I can't say who everybody is. I don't think I'm supposed to right now because it's not announced, and you know what I mean? But it's, if nothing else happens with the record, like if it goes nowhere and, I only sell 12 copies, I'll still feel like I got so much out of it just from this, just from connecting with plugged into all these talented people that I would never have imagined would want anything to do with me. It really, let me put it this way, the best way I could describe it is this. When I started as a film composer, all the composers hated me and the critics hated me, and I loved that. I fed off that energy, the fact that I was so despised because I was breaking in from rock and roll into film composing. They didn't want me there. And but the part that meant a lot to me is the musicians really loved playing the music. And I would just get so much love back from the musicians and the orchestras because like I was really challenging them and they were really having fun playing it. So I said, that's what really means a lot to me. It's like, I don't give a fuck, if whoever's writing about film music and this or that, or certainly the other composers who like hated me. It's like, I don't want their love and I don't care. But the fact that the musicians are responding, that means something to me. And I feel the same way with Big Mess. Like whether I find an audience or not, I have no idea. But the fact that these musical talents, all of whom I really respect, and a few people that I just almost idolize really, are like saying, yeah, I'd love to get involved. That already means that on my own level, I succeeded. And that's more than I could have hoped for. Now, anything else that comes from it is great, but that far exceeded my expectations. People that they're young, they're hot, they do all these crazy things. And, these remixes are so wild and they're like, sure, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, wow. It's like, that's fucking blew my mind, really did.
That's Simpsons Theme. I mean, how quickly did that come to you?
That was a rarity. That was like I've done, I think, 105, 110 film scores, and most of them, are really, really hard work. But there's a few moments here and there where something just bang like that. And The Simpsons was one of them. I went and met with Matt Groening, the creator, and they showed me a little bit of it. And I said, no one's going to see this thing. This is just for fun. And I told Matt, I said, if you want something really crazy retro, I'm the guy. If you want something contemporary, I just don't feel it, because there was something about it that reminded me of an old Hanna-Barbera, like the Flintstones. And maybe because Homer was driving the car, and how there was that the beginning of the Flintstones was also driving the car crazy. And I thought it should just be crazy retro, and it'll air 3 times and get forgotten. And I wrote it in the car on the way home from that meeting. By the time I got home, it was done. I ran downstairs. I took my 4-track tape player. I made a demo. It took me a couple hours, 3-4 hours. I don't remember. And the next day I sent Matt the demo, and he just called me back and he just said, yeah, that's it. I've never done anything that had that easy practically. And so the fact that it wasn't a throwaway, that nobody heard is like amazing. And it was just a lucky break. It was just one of those incredibly lucky things, being in the right place at the right time.
Danny, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you and talk to you here at Noise 11.
Thank you.